Rajiv, before we start, Billy, can you just play the couple of VBs and Rajiv sir will take it from there?
Beautiful.
आयरेनच्या खरंच लाभशाकून आहेस तू.
सून म्हणून घरात येतो आणि सगळ्यांची आई होऊन बसतो.
बाबा, मला माझी स्वतःची स्वप्न आहे. आज मी तुला सलाम कर.
एवढं छान दिसतंय ना. होय होय.
डान्स सुपरस्टार मात्र एकच होणार.
उस्ताद उस्ताद नाही, छोटे उस्ताद.
आपलं कुटुंब आपला सोहळा.
नंबर 1 परिवार, नंबर 1 वाहिनी. चला नव्या वर्षाची सुरुवात धूमधडाक्यात करूया.
To you, Rajiv sir.
Rajiv, are you there? Rajiv, Anand here. If you can get some of the panelists to talk about as additional, since we don't have Salil who's in hospital right now with fever. So we could also have them talk about DVB over IP as a distribution going forward, because that's something that Jayaraman was talking about on a chat. Who's heading Geo, who's with Geo at one stage, and thanks.
Thank you. So, the power and utility of connectivity could not have been emphasized more than was during these multiple waves of lockdowns, work from home, and lack of face-to-face communications. We are having this conference in a virtual mode. That's a testimony to that. Technical advances are being made on various wireless connectivity options, be it Wi-Fi through the new implementations and designs, satellite connectivity through the high throughput satellites and the LEO and MEO constellations providing broadband connectivity, and the next generation of 3GPP standards for IMT, which is 5G. And that's what we are going to discuss today. The advantages of 5G are clubbed on 3 pillars of EMBB, that is the Enhanced Mobile Broadband, URLLC, which is the low latency feature, and the MMTC, which enables a multiple of devices to be connected to the network. It is important to understand that these benefits are brought about by a lot of technological innovations, be it on the RAN side, architectures, standalone mode, dynamic spectrum sharing, pair aggregation, network slicing, or bringing the core to the edge. It is also important to note that the latest release of 5G standards have considered non-terrestrial networks like satellites to deliver the 5G services to users in urban, rural, uninhabited areas, industrial applications, and over vessels in air and sea. There is no doubt that the benefits will usher in a new wave of application innovations. Video, however, has been the leading driver of bandwidth consumption. Service providers have been delivering video and broadband services to households and mobile users. In this session, I'll be talking to a panel of experts to try and uncover for you the benefits to the users, the architectural complexities, and the resources requirement like spectrum and network densification. So as we move on, unfortunately, one of our expert panelists, Mr. Salil, is not able to join. He's unwell. So may I come on to you, Abhishek? Uh, as a leading provider for video services and broadband through a different arm of yours, how do you see the user demand evolving in the last few years?
Good afternoon, everybody, and thanks, Raji, for the question. Yeah, it has increased at a very fast pace, to put it succinctly. And as seen, the consumption pattern has evolved to match the changing customer taste. So a customer or a consumer is looking for being entertained anytime, anywhere. And this has happened and being accelerated with the availability so many different OTT platforms. We saw some of the foreign players coming in, and then there are a lot many Indian players now who have entered the space, and they have really captured the imagination of the users. So, and then now that these platforms are available, the content is also coming up in different vernacular languages. So the consumers have now a variety of choice, and they are able to listen and watch the content in the language of their choice. This trend which we are seeing, and as per the latest reports, in India, the average time a consumer is spending on the mobile phone is anything around 2 hours a day. And I think we would all relate to how we spend our time and our family members every day watching one content or the other on the mobile phone. So this trend has increased because of two basic reasons. One is the penetration of smartphones across the country. More options are available at a reduced price, as well as the penetration of the broadband, which is actually the trend, right? And the pandemic had this positive flip side to actually give it the desired impetus. And that's why, as I said in the opening statement, I saw a complete increase and fast increase, and the demand has drastically evolved over the last few years.
Thank you, Abhishek. Yeah, may I move on to you? Broadpeak works with service operators globally for providing video solutions. In your experience, what trends are we seeing on the 5G streaming market globally?
Yeah, sure. Hi, everyone. Nice to be here with you. Sure. I mean, I cannot agree more with what Abhishek was telling about the trends in terms of the consumers doing services. This is a trend. And in some markets, broadcast viewing have even been overtaken by streaming. So just to see to explain you how deep this is as a trend, and 5G will only accelerate this trend. This is for sure. And I agree with Abhishek. I mean, we see different things which are completely entangled, like the use of the mobile phone, of course, to watch TV. The non-linear conception as well is an habit that we've seen over the last years. And mobile devices have become real TV sets. People sometimes, maybe mostly youngsters, they turn to the small screen even while at home. And by the way, sometimes they don't even switch to the Wi-Fi of the home gateway. They camp on the 3G or 4G network. So this is really new. The generalization of the multi-screen usage is something very important, because, as you know, broadcast and IPTV technologies are not applicable to these mobile devices. And one of the trends, I would say, is the live sport. I mean, this is really a very, I would say, interesting trend to see this live sports going to streaming. In India, of course, we see, for instance, Sonali or Hotstar, or even I think 10 Sports TV, having rights and offering sports in streaming. We see also the internet giants like Amazon Prime, which are acquiring rights. In Europe, we see, for instance, DAZN emerging, also present in US and Japan. So sports streaming is a very interesting trend. And to me, one of the most shining example was that last year, the European Championship in the UK in 4K was only available on BBC iPlayer, so in streaming with the BBC app. Just to see that premium content with a premium quality, you got it only in streaming, okay? So then I could mention as well new features to augment the video experience, like for instance, the watching together features, you know, when you can chat while streaming, or the sound features like Dolby Atmos, or even adding code noise during a game, for instance. And of course, something which is also very trendy and also very applicable to 5G and to the mobile devices is the fact that you can orchestrate your own basically viewing, you know, having multi-view, multi-angle, and you do the directed cut. You decide what you want to see for F1, for instance, race or something like that. So yeah, those are the key trends. Streaming is really going very, very strong at the moment.
Okay, that sounds very interesting. So, that leads me to a question to you. As a company that has been instrumental in making the video content packaging, delivery, and distribution for leading video services in India, what is the impact of 5G in media, and especially in digital media distribution?
Our friend is muted, I think.
I'm sorry.
The
So that
5G
happens
is,
in all of these conferences. We forget to. Yes.
yeah,
Please.
yeah. In fact, 5G is something which is basically may not have an immediate impact on the current setup of video distribution, largely because India is a different case, and I have always been advocate of giving more bandwidth to the less privileged people because they need the bandwidth the most. And if you see, when we started Dish TV or something, or all these, DTH, I think the biggest takers were the remote and the people which were not served. And that is how these distribution platforms are really solid strength for the country. Now, 5G, when we are talking about, is essentially, is not going to replace the fiber to home. It's not going to replace most of these applications which we are talking around, that ultra low latency driving cars and all. Those applications do require a lot of back end infrastructure. So if I have to go for a self-driven car, I should have some roads which are compatible. I should have the society to really accept those things. And when we come to that, we will find that there will be another technology which will be 6G or 7G. And all this, we will be wasting our money, which is in the transition. And that is why, and the other impact which definitely is going to have, that the short form content, which today the mobile users like kids, as Jan has said, that the kids are really seeing those live or any of these short form content. The short form contents may really become a little long form if you get more bandwidth, and that is what the transition I can see, that maybe with 5G, in areas where people can afford and areas where the people will be served, maybe some of the long form content where the people are mobile has got some kind of an advantage. Otherwise, in the pandemic and all, anyway, mobility is not there. And to advance this 5G in this, I think it is a step which I think we have to take guardedly. And the impact is definitely is going to be there.
Mhm.
If a subscriber spend 2 hours of screen time, I think he will have at least 1 hour, half of the time he will like to entertain himself, and half of the time he will like to be informed.
Mhm.
Either it's a live match, either it's a news, either it's, and these content, will then elongate for more time. So I hope that with 5G there will be increase in screen time. And today we have around 550 million smartphones. It may increase by the expectation what the smartphone manufacturers must be happy having that. So I think more or less, I will recommend a guarded approach for deployment, and there are other means to really overcome and circumvent, and we should really exhaust that and do. Otherwise, I think the life is going to be same. If you talk about the linear TV, digital media, digital TV or streaming, or you talk about the print media, I think all of them are sharing the same ad revenue pie. The TV pie has gone to digital, print pie has also gone to digital, and that is why digital has come almost the same level. But I think if you see the most of these linear TV advertisement revenues are coming from the underserved areas and cable homes and things like that. Maybe 100 million cable homes are giving 25,000 crores of ad revenue to the linear TV people. So the change that we can assume that everything will come on 5G, it's very unlikely. And the consumption pattern change will definitely happen with the demographic change. We see what we were seeing, our kids are not seeing. What we are looking at with the objective, kids are not seeing. The only change I can see is that the media time will be taken away by video gaming, because 5G will nothing but promote video gaming to an extent where the people can play. And that's where I can see that is the challenge, where because the screen time is limited. No parent will allow more than 2 to 3 hours screen time to a kid, because he is already doing now in pandemic 5 hours of schooling on screen. So that's the challenge, where the cut will come on the media, because information anyway people will like to have that half an hour information time everybody will make. So I think 5G will definitely improve, have a change in the consumption pattern, especially gaming will increase in this.
That's up. Just to add to what you just mentioned about reaching out to the areas which are underserved. We heard Shashi Shekharji from Prasar Bharati this morning saying that free dish has reached around 50 million homes. When you convert that to individuals, that's around 250 million individuals. And when you compare that to YouTube with 400 million individual or monthly mouths for them, is pay TV getting the right due? Is the free dish getting the right due in terms of the ad pie? That's something which probably a linear video session might want to cover. Coming back to the video thing, Abhishek, video has been the driver for broadband consumption worldwide. We know that in every report that we pick up, be it the Cisco report, VNI, or anyone, the video would be a major consumption of the total consumption, right? So, when 5G comes and it comes with a lot of capabilities, what other killer applications do you see besides video from 5G? What are your expectations?
Sure. So I think to be able to understand and answer this question, one needs to first look at what are the capabilities which 5G will bring. So if I have to summarize, so one is, of course, we all know enhanced mobile broadband, right? That is one capability. Second is ultra reliable, low latency network, right? Things will be on a very fast pace. And third, very important, is massive Internet of Things opportunities. So if the enterprises can combine these three capabilities, one can envisage many use cases. So, and there are exciting opportunities. For example, it can empower the media producers to stay mobile while creating or transmitting the content. So journalists can cover events from very far remote areas without wireline connectivity, which was right now a kind of a limitation. So they can provide real-time news, and the packages which they used to give can be edited on the fly without disruption. Right? We are so used to see these OB vans, the vans with big satellite standing. So the dependency on them will reduce because the 5G will provide the capability. Also, through advanced analytics and algorithms, the media companies will be equipped to provide tailored and video feeds to the subscribers on mobile devices. Right? You can actually pinpoint what a consumer would like, and you can give premium customers exclusive broadcasting content. This is the capability which will enhance. If we combine what we call AR and VR, augmented reality and virtual reality, it will be a stepping stone for virtual gaming. And I think Vyasji already highlighted about it. So real-time, fast-paced virtual gaming will be possible for people who are distantly placed. Today, your brother or friend has to be with you on a common gaming console. So these gaming consoles will disappear. Your mobile phone, smartphone help you. So concept of cloud gaming might replace the console games, which will be a massive opportunity for the broadcasters. Of course, it will also support exceptional quality 4K ultra high definition videos, which can go to the consumers. They will be integrated with the AI and big data to further understand, as I said, the unique needs of the subscribers. And if I go a little bit outside our media and entertainment industry, again, huge benefits, Industry 4.0, smart factory management, high payload requirements for security and surveillance. I mean, I think it's all about the imagination of the experts in the specific industries, which apart from the use cases which comes to my mind, can be bring up and brought up to the consumers' needs.
Thanks, Abhishek. You mentioned about content acquisition from remote areas and what is being done by probably OB vans today. That would also be on a premise that 5G will be available nationwide and in the remote areas as well. So I'll come back to you later with a question on what kind of architecture transformation will be required to deliver these benefits, and what kind of business cases will be there for it to be rolled out at such a large scale. But I'll come back to you on that. Meanwhile, Jan, can I come to you? Would you let us know what kind of challenges are we seeing in video delivery, and why 5G alone won't solve all the issues?
Oh, you're on mute.
Sorry, yeah, thank you. Yeah, I'd like to pick up just before on what Eman and Abhishek were saying. It's very interesting, actually. I think I really agree with Eman that for the consumer markets, I mean, 5G won't be a revolution. You see, I mean, it's gonna bring a lot of more comfort. I think it can play in favor on the underserved areas, because you'll find extra capacity in the low bands in 5G as well, and it's going to be very useful for the remote areas in terms of the coverage plus capacity that 5G will be bringing. But then, of course, the promise of 5G is for the B2B markets. Okay, and I mean, circling back to what Abhishek was saying, I mean, this is where we should see the most interesting use cases. Okay, yeah. Then back to your question, Rajiv. I think the challenges in the streaming industry will probably be again on the live streaming. This is where we expect most of the challenges. I'd like to take the example of sports again. And by the way, sport is something that, is so popular. Everybody is watching sports. I mean, yep. I know gaming is consuming a lot of bandwidth on the networks with people, but sports is also something that is universal. And I'm sure you know what I mean. I mean, in India, we have the cricket, the World Cup last year, the IPL. I mean, this is those are a lot of emotional moments and critical moments for the networks, okay? Because delivering a steady volume of data over the network is less of a problem for operators and service providers, but coping with unpredictable traffic in intensity and time is a different story. So yeah, the live streaming and especially the peaks of traffic are something which are really something that they need to cope with. I'd like to give you an example. In Europe, in Italy recently, Telecom Italia, for instance, they implemented with us, with Broadpeak, the multicast ABR on the fixed line networks, okay? So they can cope with the peaks of audience. This is one example of solution how you can make your network smaller, better, and allow everybody to be happy. Everybody wins. I mean, the content providers, and this was for their content, especially for their sports content, the operator who delights its subscribers, and of course the end users. So yeah, the challenge, as I said, is the peaks of audience, and 5G alone might not always solve this challenge, because 5G capacity is not infinite. Okay, you'll see. I mean, 5G is coming in India, but you'll see that the 5G pipeline will fill up very fast. We've seen that in some areas in Europe and elsewhere, because 5G boosts usage, of course. And also, there is something that was mentioned as well, is that we talk about the error interface of 5G, 4G and 5G. What about the backhaul and the aggregation networks? They need to follow the pace, of the upgrade in radio capacity. It's not always the case. You'll find areas where you will have insufficient backhaul capacity, for instance. I mean, I know that in Europe, there's a lot of backhaul networks with microwave links. They will need to be upgraded, okay? So especially in suburban and rural areas. So yeah, those are the challenges, I think, coming with 5G. Usage is boosted, but the pipeline is filling up rapidly, and all what comes with the live streaming, it could be a problem. We see this problem arriving in the fixed line networks. I gave you the example in Italy with the football. Actually, the content was football, and I'm sure we're going to see that as well on the mobile networks.
Thanks, Jan. You highlighted the issue of backhaul to the towers and the base stations, and that's correct. Today, the gap in India is probably larger than it would be seen elsewhere in the world in terms of number of towers being fiberized. And I'm sure satellite can play a huge role there. The new high throughput satellites could provide those backhaul links to enable these towers for high bandwidth delivery today, instead of waiting for a multi-year rollout of those fiber networks. So, but of course, that would mean balancing the spectrum between IMT usage and satellite usage and Wi-Fi usage. Vyasam, I would like to have your views on this. How do you see the growing spectrum needs for 5G? Is it an opportunity for balancing the effective spectrum usage between Wi-Fi, terrestrial, and satellites?
Yeah, in fact, if a spectrum is utilized with more efficiency, I think it's a logical thing. And the allocations which was made almost 30, 40 years ago, that time these technologies were not even existing, and even people were not aware of that. I can have 1 million devices, a requirement of 1 million devices in a 1 kilometer square of area. So I think we should really spare the spectrum which is underutilized. It should be done. There is absolutely no second thought about this. However, we have to keep some guard, in the sense that, say, there are some bands which are already allocated to, say, like for emergency purposes, for satellite communication, for like DTT, especially terrestrial TV. And we all know that a broadcasting of linear television on a 5G or a broadcast on a DTT will definitely, a broadcast on DTT will be much smarter than broadcast of linear TV on 5G. And when we know all this, I think we should really allocate some of these bands for these purposes. And point in case for our India also, we have uh, generously said that yes, we will give C band 3.3 to 3.8 and something like that, and especially even the 500 and 500 to 600 megahertz. Now these are the bands basically used for DTT application, and it should be preserved for that, because there are technologies which are now available with the time. And India being a country where you have still a lot of linear TV scope which is there, and which will be there across the world, but so that can be really done by that, so that the 5G applications can be really niche to the 5G requirement. And similarly on the satellite front, when you say that 3.3 to 3.7 and 8 onwards, I think we are facing even issues from aviation and issues from the existing satellite band. And if you see, satellite application is not only broadcasting, it's basically an emergency network for entire communication. If anything fails, I think we really fall upon satellite. And that's where I think we should keep this entity of C band. And C band is the only band which operates even in hurricane and any adverse
Yep.
rain conditions and
Agree.
all those things. And I think there are bands, very smart bands, which are like at millimeter wave and all that 25 gigahertz, 30 gigahertz and all. These bands should be definitely be given to 5G or 6G or whatever the next generation comes. But I think some of these bands like 500 to 600 and 3.7 and 4.2, these are some of the critical bands which are for emergency purposes as well as for any unforeseen happens. I think these should be protected. Otherwise, I'm in for 5G, any spectrum which is unallocated, underutilized, should be given to them, because this is a new technology which provides more bits per head hertz as a efficiency, and we should definitely encourage that.
Thank you so much, Vyasa. Actually, every new technology, whether it's on the Wi-Fi side or terrestrial, like 5G or IMT or the satellites, they would need spectrum to be deployed and to be tested out. And any focus on only one single technology may not be in the interest of the nation. One has to have a balanced approach. You mentioned about the millimeter wave spectrum, and in the last ITU WRC, which was in 2019, around 17 gigahertz of spectrum was identified in the millimeter wave for IMT services. Uh, in the 20 that included the 26 gigahertz band, which is from 24.25 to 27.5. However, the recent consultation paper from PRAI, which was notified because of DOT, has kind of extended that to go up to 28.5, while 27.5 to 29.5 was earmarked for satellites at the ITU convention.
Mhm.
So I hope the regulator would come up with a balanced proposition, which is suitable for the growth of each one of those sectors, because we need all of those sectors. We need the
Yes.
Wi-Fi, we need terrestrial, and we need satellites. So thank you so much for that, bringing that up. And also you mentioned about the C-band and uh, the difference of levels between the IMT power levels, transmit levels, and the C-band receive levels is millions and billions of times. So there has to be a guard band. The guard band needs to be protected, and I'm sure the authorities will take a
Yes.
considerable look at that. I'm hopeful of that at least. Yeah. So thank you so much for bringing that up. I'll be coming back to you, Vyasa, to talk about how the spectrum needs of 5G could be handled with alternate technologies. We have heard about 86 3.0 and all. I'll be coming back to you, but before that,
Sure.
I would like to go back to Abhishek. Uh, Abhishek, uh, we are hearing about the use cases. We are hearing about the spectrum needs. But there is also a lot of architecture transformation that will be required by the service operator to deliver these use cases. what kind of challenges do you see in terms of 5G operationalizing?
Interesting one. So, say to reap the advantages which the 5G will offer, I mean, namely ultra low latency and extreme throughput. It's like parts of the ecosystem have to come together and work together, right? So, for example, if I talk about the compute will be very critical because a massive amount of data needs to be processed on the edge. So, which means there has to be a convergence between the transport and the core. So we will see significant convergence happening between the radio and the core piece of the network. So there is one major architectural change I see. Another thing would be to be able to efficiently use this spectrum. You need to really efficiently slice the network very well, because that is important to recognize and remediate any quality of service possible degradations, right? For such kind of a implementation, and this needs to be continuously monitored and analyzed while on the go. So such tools needs to be evolved to be able to leverage this thing. Another crucial decision which the telcos are currently grappling is whether to go on the standalone or the non-standalone mode, because there are pros and cons, right? For moving from 4G to 5G, because a non-standalone architecture will enable the telcos to leverage the existing 4G investment, while a standalone architecture would drive new services specifically to Industry 4.0, but then it will require considerable investment, which may not be possible to justify in the initial period. So this is another thing which I think some conversions will occur as we proceed further. Decision will happen. Another one which is very important is that the high-speed connectivity will also bring element of security. We will have to look at how we have to completely provide the security to circumvent the risk of any breaches or hacking, because there is a massive IoT devices which will come. Those devices would be used in critical implementations. So a complete framework needs to be developed for robust encryption and monitoring. Last important point which comes to my mind on this topic is, it needs to be sustainable. When you are doing so much of things, you would have huge energy sapping consumption needs. 5G rollout will require energy consumptions to increase, which would need more towers, more power to run the existing sites and build new sites. So all the stakeholders will have to work together to make it an efficient strategy so that the 5G rollouts are efficient. And here, probably the policymakers, and the powers to be can really help to expedite these things. For example, they need to make sure that the spectrum is, harmonized spectrum is made available to achieve economies of scale. To be able to roll out all these things, the right of way needs to be provided, and a lot of assets on the furniture, the street furniture like the poles, and those things should be made available. And as this will evolve, the affordable devices will also, all these things have to come together, which I am clubbing under architectural change to be able to achieve the vision of the 5G.
Thanks, Abhishek. You rightly pointed out that the benefits of enhanced broadband, and Evan sir also touched upon that while 5G brings with it more bits per hertz kind of a thing, it also enables a wider radio, which means you need to have wider spectrum available. It doesn't have to be contiguous, because carrier aggregation feature of 5G enables putting small slots and bringing them together. At the same time, wider slots are available in the millimeter wave band. So if you look at the 26 gigahertz band, that 3.25 gigahertz between 4 operators in India, you would easily start with 400 gigahertz and then 400 megahertz per operator, and then start allocating further. But while you are enabling that mobile broadband through that wide radio on the millimeter wave, that also means the operator needs to go for network densification, which will add to more cost. It will need more backhaul. So yes, there is a lot of stuff to be done on the low latency side. We can't change physics. So while 5G enables low latency on the radio side, if the core is not pushed to the edge, and if the traffic has to be traveling all the way to the core, which is somewhere far away, then those latency advantages cannot be given. So standalone architectures would be required, and thank you, Abhishek, for bringing that out. So there's some connecting this discussion to the spectrum needs that we discussed earlier.
Mhm.
We have seen alternate technologies like ATSC 3.0 talking about one-way IP, delivering not just video, but uh, a lot of bandwidth hungry one-way applications like OTS to devices or IoT devices, right? Product upgrades, which are one-way transfer of traffic. I'd like to pick your mind on what's the business case for offloading some of the use cases to these alternate technologies and not put all of that into the 5G services load.
Yeah, in fact, I think when we talk about spectrum, I mentioned earlier that we have to keep certain spectrum for multicast application or IP multicast applications. And the one good thing about alternatives, what we should really think about is the low power and the low height towers, because currently what we are really looking at in the 5G and the other 2G 3G scenarios is the high power high tower heights, which has got a lot of implications about health as well as security. And essentially we are not really fully geared on the cyber security. I think that will be a great grievous threat, and which Abhishek has already mentioned about that. Now, when we talk about ATS 3.0, this is one standard. I don't say that we really follow this standard, but something like similar to that is really important for us, because we can then transmit, we can utilize our existing DTT band for maybe all the 100 or 700 800 cities where we have already got some infrastructure, as well as it can be upgraded and we can have a real good terrestrial TV distribution. The other aspect is that yes, the moment you talk about that million devices in a square kilometer, or maybe number of devices in a square kilometer, they need firmware upgrade, they need software upgrades. And if you go for million upgrades on a IP TCP IP network, you can see what massive data flow will be there. Or if you do it on a simple ATNC 3.0, you will have at least 1/10 of the bandwidth requirement. And these two technologies, say if you see 5G and the alternative similar to ATSC 3.0, I've seen a study where if you have to do it a 3 million subscriber network, it will cost around maybe $3,000, $3,000 million, $3 billion, as against 400, $500 million on the similar subscriber base. Now that is the difference in the capex, and that is the difference in terms of power, which is really spread around these. So you can also replicate these frequencies more closely number of times. So there are networks in countries now which has used only one frequency, single frequency ADSC networks, and they are replicating because there is low power, low tower, so you can use it into that. So these advantages we should really take care, and these are the technologies which definitely we should really invest into it. Yes, there are some development, as Abhishek ji has already told, that in the infrastructure development, we will have to do device development, we will have to do security and other things. So I think we should do that. But I'm very, very clear about that. Yes, we all solutions are not there with 5G. There are something which we have to really separate it out. And that is something which I can say two things. One is media delivery. It should not be left alone onto 5G because it's not their cup of tea. They cannot broadcast a live TV or a cricket match of a World Cup final to a billion people. Never, never, ever without satellite. So we have to be very, very pragmatic onto this. The last thing where we have to really look at when we develop this 5G network, we should really develop and strengthen the edges, and that will also save a lot of bandwidth and a lot of spectrum, because if your edges are smart, because today what you need is not a fat pipe, you need a smart pipe. And if you make the pipe smarter, you will consume lesser power, lesser bandwidth, and you will get more happy use cases and user experience.
That's an interesting take. Jan, we heard about video and 5G, and would like to pick from your experiences from implementations worldwide by BroadPay. So, what considerations do service providers should be taking into account while preparing their 5G networks for video delivery, and the other way around, for the video delivery networks to 5G?
Yeah.
I would also like you to add something on the DVB IP, if you could help us. And is that option one should be looking at?
So not sure I'll be the right person to comment on the second question. Sorry about that, Rajiv.
That's okay.
But I think it was very interesting what Abhishek and Emmanuel were saying about the importance of the edge, for instance, and will 4G or 5G altogether be able to carry the amount of traffic that we see during the peaks? It's always the same type of questions. And Emmanuel was mentioning cricket because, and in France we would mention probably the Olympic game for football as well. And so I think there are two things which have partially been said. I mean, that 5G is bringing in terms of the architecture that video delivery networks should also embrace. The first one is that the user plane in 5G is designed to be more distributed. It means that we will give more, let's say, more power, let's say like this, to the edge, more processing power, more storage. The edge is become critical for all the applications that we see for the B2B markets, but not only, so the private networks, but also for the consumer market. And if we come back to streaming, I mean, in streaming, quality comes with proximity. So you need to bring the content closer to the end user. So you need in practice to multiply the number of points of presence, okay? And there is a real opportunity with 5G because the edge, as I think it was Abhishek mentioning that there is also in 5G the fact that you can centralize the radio access network functions, and Open RAN, which is also emerging, is another variant of the RAN, which is also highlighting this capability. You can decentralize part of the core network data plane, and you can have private network functions. So you see that the edge is crystallizing a number of different applications and network functions that start to make it profitable, okay? Because the edge is expensive. And this brings me to my second point of the fact that 5G is a kind of cloud native architecture by design, okay? So if I would give an advice to the service provider to prepare the network, is like really to start also selecting their cloud platform, okay, their cloud framework with the right orchestration. It could be private cloud, it could be public cloud, it could be hybrid, whatever. But at some point of time, they will have a gains in terms of the operability of having a unified platform for the network functions, for the applications, and CDN is no exception. CDN has to be also, virtualized or containerized now, because this is even more interesting, because it has to be dynamic, okay? The edge is expensive as well. The edge is costly. You need to bring power, you have all the civil works, all the conditioning, all the passive elements. And so if you want to make the edge profitable, you need to have the dynamic placement of the different functions. Okay, I know it's a bit advanced, and we are not there yet. I mean, nobody is there yet, but we know that within 5 to 10 years, you will instantiate the functions. And by the way, network slicing is nothing else than that. You will instantiate the network functions at the right location at the right time. And CDN, and so cache server, virtual cache servers are exactly the same. Our vision is that you will need to instantiate a caching capacity at the right place at the right time. And then you may release it when the cricket game is over, you see? So decentralization, the prepare for the cloud, I would mention 2 other things. You need to make your video delivery network open, okay? Like 5G. 5G is like a platform that you expose to third parties, that you expose to the B2B market. CDN is the same. Some operators, they may want to build their video delivery network for their own content, but they also may want to expose it and to monetize it towards third-party OTT streaming platforms, for instance. And this is where open caching, which is a very interesting initiative where Broadpeak is extremely active, is coming into play, okay? Open caching aimed at facilitating the interoperability between the operator CDN and the content providers CDN and origin server parts. And when we simplify this interface, we make everybody happy here again, because content provider, they can benefit from cache servers inside the operator's network, so they will deliver the content with a much better quality. Operators, they offload part of their network, having the cache nodes inside their network, and they delight their subscribers. And the end users here again is very happy with the quality. So yeah, open CDN is extremely important. And last but not least, I will mention also, because I was, when Emin was saying that we will never deliver cricket game in unicast, he's partially right. But at Broadpeak, we're working at some functions like you may remember during the COVID crisis, we had, for instance, I think it was Netflix slightly downgrading the bit rates, the video bit rates to everyone, to make sure everybody accesses the service. So at Broadpeak, we have features as well in the CDN, in the cache server, that allows, in critical moments, like the ABS of your car, you know, sometimes you delegate the braking of your car to the ABS. Yeah. Here the same. Sometimes in a video delivery network, you may want to take control of the streaming and not anymore let the video players pilot the streaming. Right. So you may want to take control, and we have so-called server-side ABR streaming. So we allow the cache server to decide which video bitrate he wants to serve. And he might decide to downgrade slightly the bitrate to make sure everybody accesses the service, okay? So this type of more sophisticated feature is very interesting when you want to make sure that everybody gets a good video experience. That would be my advice, is to build a sustainable CDN with 5G.
That's very interesting to know, the kind of advances that are happening on the video delivery side, especially on the dynamic CDN side, and that was very interesting to know here. Thanks, Jan. Thanks for bringing that up. We are out of time. We have run out of time. But Vyasab, can I just ask you 30 seconds between you and Abhishek? We are still not a full 4G country. There's still a lot of 2G, 3G devices. So what kind of time frame do you see for
Yeah, Abhishek, you'll take it.
Sure, sir. So it's a tough one. It's like gazing at the crystal ball to predict the future. But let's take it logically. As we stand today, already we know 60 countries in the world are having a running commercial 5G network, so that we know. We also know that in our country, all the telcos have done some kind of a use case testing in one city or the other, right? So I think the next stumbling block which we are looking to resolve is the auction. The March auction has been pushed to probably the July-August time frame this year. So once this is out of the way, then the next logical step is for the operators to start rolling it out. And it will happen, my guess is, again, logically speaking, this year, though the launch could be in few cities, the 10 to 12 cities where the testing has happened, and all the big names, Delhi, Bombay, Kolkata, Chennai, Bangalore, Ahmedabad, and some of the industry cities like Jamnagar, Gandhinagar would also probably fall in this category. So very hopeful, 2022, we can also tick mark we in India are 5G.
Yeah.
Yes, I would like to add anything to that. Just 30 seconds.
Anything between 3 to 5 years, I think we will have 5G. But my worry is the moment we do this auction, next year we'll be ready for auctions for 6G, because already 6G trials are on. And essentially, if you see the device metrics, today we have maybe close to less than 1 million handsets of real good quality for 4G, 5G compatibility out of 560 or 600 million smartphones. And to really, recycle all these handphones or smartphones, I think anywhere between 3 to 5 years is the time when you will see the complete working, 5G services.
Thank you so much. We have run out of time. We have taken more time. And if it was not a virtual conference, I believe the organizers would have pulled me off the stage. Thank you so much. It's been nice talking to all of you. And I hope the audience got a lot of information through this discussion. Thank you so much. Over to you now.
Thank you. Thank you for inviting us.
Rajiv. Thank you.
Thank you, Rajiv.
Thank you, Jan.
Thank you, Aman and Abhishek, for the discussion.